Welcome back. Now that we've had a chance to look at most of our 3D modeling tools, I just want to do a quick video playing around with some of that. And we're just going to build some stuff just to kind of practice some of the skills. So follow along if you like, but this should give you an idea of just kind of how you put some of these together to actually make something in the 3D space. So we're going to follow up on the trend. Previously, I had you do a stapler and a tape roll from my desk. So we're going to do just a couple of other objects here on my desk. We'll start with a coffee mug, maybe. So let's grab our circle tool. You'll notice we're in top plan view just to start. So let's draw a circle for the outline of our mug. Let's make this, coffee mug's about 3 inches, so my radius will be 1.5 inches. There we go. That's our circle on the layer plane. We'll extrude that, Control E, or you can find it up here in Model. And we'll extrude it, let's say 4 inches. All right, so there's the basic general shape. Now let's go ahead and make the handle. That's the tricky part, right? So to do that, let's actually draw it flat on our layer plane. So let's go to top plan. We're going to draw the handle out here, and then we'll pop it into 3D, and then we'll just rotate it and stick it to our mug. So drawing that handle, let's start with maybe an oval. That's kind of the basis of our shape. Let's go to about there. We can always change the shape slightly later. So what I'm thinking is we'll make that, and then we'll just cut it off about here. And then over in this area, we'll just keep that. But let's start here. I'll select that. And then let's use our offset tool to make a ring. Let's go in, 1/4 inch is good. Click there. So now I've got 2 ovals. I'll grab both of them, and I'll go into Clip Surface. We're still working in 2D right now, so we're using the Modify menu for a lot of this. Clip Surface. So now I can take this centering. It's taken that bite out of that, and I can just get rid of the center one. Now let's draw that line where we think it might connect to the cup. Kind of, let's say like that. So now I will get my selection tool. X will bring up your selection tool. And then let's just slice this shape right across that line. So I'll get my slice tool, and I will just draw along that line. And I'll select which side I want to keep. There we go. Get rid of that line. So here's our little handle. And it's a closed shape. So what we can do now, so there would usually be sort of like this little lip up here, but we can just change this using our deform tool. So just double click, and it'll bring up all the different vertices of this shape. And then we can just tug some of these up, and let's tug one down there. Good. So there's our handle. So now we have this is in 2D. This is in 3D. Let's go ahead and extrude that. I don't know, about a 1/2 inch. And there's our handle. So now we want to rotate it and stick it to our cup. To do that, let's look at it from the side. Let's get a good side view. So there's our handle. And then I'll grab our rotate tool. And I will rotate it that way. So that looks good. I'll bring it up here. Now let's look at it from the top again. We're way off. As you can see, we're right there. So let's just drag it over until this is right in there. And it's just a little bit in. Cool. So you'll see I'll need to move it down a little bit. So let's look at it from the front. That. And we can reshape it here as well. So if I wanted to, I could just shrink the whole thing. It could be a small little diminutive handle. but I think generally that's pretty close. So that's our handle. It connects to this. Now to make the actual cup part, the best tool for playing with this, hollowing this out, is going to be our shell solid. So with that tool selected, yeah, 1/4 inch is a good distance for the wall of our cup. You select the face that you want open, right there, and then click your check mark. Boop. And there's our cup. What we can do is join these now. So I'll select both of them, holding Shift. I'll go up to Model, Add Solids. So now that's one solid object. Now we can do some little finishing touches if we want, rounding over the edges and things like that. So let's look at our fillet tool. In here we have a couple different options. You can have it fillet everything based on a face. Let's try that. And it's going to be a really small radius because this is a small piece that we're working with. So 0.1 inch is actually okay. And I select the surface. And then I hit check. Boop. Gives us a nice little rounded thing. Let's do this bottom one too. And you can go ahead and do, let's change this. Let's not do it by select faces. So you can go ahead and select these as well. You can select multiple at the same time by holding Shift and click. So there we go. We've got our smooth little coffee cup. The other thing you can do, the fillet also works with interior corners as well. So grab your fillet tool. Let's hit this ring inside. And you'll see there it smooths out the geometry in there as well. So now we get a nice soft edge inside our mug. That's it. That's our little coffee mug. Okay, let's try another one of these. So this is pretty close to what I use on with Vectorworks for navigating. It's just a little number pad. Let's go ahead and build this in 3D space as well. This one's going to present a different set of challenges. If you don't have one of these and you don't have a number pad on your computer, get one. It's great for Vectorworks. So let's go ahead and start building this. Couple different ways we could do this. One, let's see, 5 inches by 6 inches maybe. Let's start there. If we extrude this, let's say 1 inch. So there's a couple different ways to get that slope on there. One idea is that we build everything on the face here, which would probably be the easiest, because then we don't have to worry about the difference between working plane and layer plane. So we build all of our buttons and stuff on top here, and then we just look at it from the side, and we grab a rotate tool, and we tip it up, and we add our little bits and bobs in there. The other way to do it would be to use something like the taper surface. So we start here, we grab our taper face here, and we taper it down like that. To get our little shape. I'm going to go with the first option. I think that'll just kind of save some issues later on. So we'll start with our main shape here. Let's actually do most of our work in 2D to start. So I'll delete that. We'll go to a top plan view. So we're looking at it in wireframe. And we'll go ahead and start over. 5 inches by 6 inches. Right? Then we got all these little buttons. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 by 4. So let's make a little button. And these will be about 3/4 of an inch. When you're punching in fractions, you can punch in 0.75 for 3/4. You can also punch in 3/4 3/4, and it will understand it to be the same thing. So we've got this. How do we spread these out over a surface? Let's look at move by points. So we've got this. We need 4 going across, so I'll create 3 more duplicates. And you'll see up here I am currently in the distribute mode, and I'm in object retention and select retention mode. So grab that, and as I pull it across, it will evenly space 4 buttons. Now they're all selected. I'm going to change it to 5 duplicates, and then I will space it down here. There we go. With everything selected, if I hold Shift and use my arrow keys, I can just kind of nudge this into where I want it to be. That looks pretty good. You'll see up here this top row of buttons are a little narrower. So let's grab all 4 of those buttons and we'll shrink them down. So normally if you just select one, you can grab the node and pull it down. You could do that one by one, grab that and then click over to there. You can also, if you have multiple things selected, you can go ahead and with your selection tool, single object is your default, but you can switch over to unrestricted. And that means if I pull down on one of these, it will pull all of them together. So that's the unrestricted mode. Good, I'm done with that. So now we've got our smaller row for the arrows up here. Let's see here, the 0 should be joined with this one. So I'll just slide this over to there. And I can get rid of this now. The Enter key is double-sized. I'll slide that up to there. That other one is hidden back here somewhere. There it is. There we go. That's all of our keys. Now, what we'll probably want to do also is fillet these corners. So let's select that. Again, let's keep a pretty tight radius, 0.1 inch. That seems to work. So if you just double click on a shape, that will round all the edges of the shape. Now I could have rounded the edge like this. I'll pull it over here. I could have rounded the edge on it first before I did my move by points, and that would have duplicated all of them already with the corners rounded. The problem with that is once you stretch it like that, the radius gets a little different. It's not that drastic, but it can make a difference. Same thing if I were to stretch this into one of those double-sized buttons. It just gets a little wonky and it's not as consistent. But if you're not terribly worried about those little things, you could just round them all before you do your move by points and create your little button array. But this isn't too bad. All right, there we go. We've got all of our buttons and we've got our base. It's all still in 2 dimensions at this point. So I will select all of my buttons. There we go. And I will extrude those. Control E. Like a 1/4 inch. 1/4. All right, those are extruded. The base of our keypad, let's extrude that. Let's say 3/8 of an inch. Here's the problem though, when we did that, it moved up and covered all of our buttons, right? So let's redo that operation. But this time, instead of extruding positively up towards the camera, let's extrude -3/8 so that it drops below that surface. So the buttons will be sitting right on top of it. Control E, -3/8. There we go. So now we have the basics of our keypad. We can do a little bit to keep kind of making this a little smoother. So for example, let's go ahead and run our fillet edge tool again. Let's have it select faces. So I'll select that face and click OK. And that rounds that all over. Same thing, I can select multiple faces by holding Shift. and then I can round all of them at the same time. That's actually a little too extreme. Let's change this to 0.05. So we'll grab all of these. And check. There we go. There's our little buttons. Very handy. Let's grab all of this together. We're going to be moving it now, so let's grab it all and group it together so that we can't get in and accidentally move buttons around. Control G will group everything together. You can also reach that here under Modify Group. So now we've got that. Let's turn it to the side and have a look. And you'll see we're below the layer surface here, so let's go ahead and lift this up onto the layer plane. So now everything is sitting right there. And then what we want to do is add the little loopy thing down here, this guy here. So let's draw a circle. Let's start there. Maybe there-ish. Oh, you know what I need to do, actually? I need to set that as our working plane. Otherwise, it's going to draw right back here. So let's grab our working plane tool. And right there. So we're going to draw right on that side to make this shape. Let's go there, and then I'll move it down just a little bit. And that looks pretty good. I can shift it over right there. Let's go down a little bit more. I'm just holding Shift plus my arrow to do that. Now you'll see there's going to be this little gap here, which would look weird. So I'll just grab a little rectangle to fill in that gap. I'll select both of those and I will add surface, because those are still two-dimensional objects, right? They're right on that plane. So now I have that. Let's grab our push-pull tool. I'll grab that surface and I will just push it through to the edge here. And there you'll see we have those objects. We'll combine them. So model, oops, one. Oh, it's not letting me grab it because this is a group, so I need to ungroup that before I can do this. So grab that, and I will add solids. There we go. This little working plane thing isn't needed anymore. So let's get out of here. Let's go to a top plan view, and that'll reset us to layer plane. So there we go. We need to tip this up now. Let's look at it from a side view. So we will select this as our pivot point. Oops. And actually, I'll want to group this all together. Otherwise, I'll pivot up the base, and the buttons will stay exactly where they are. So group, Control G, pivot. That's our pivot point. And this is our bottom point. And I'll just take that up to the layer plane. There we go. And we are all set. Now, if we wanted to, we could come in here and we could play with, making it look good, all that stuff. I want to make sure that we're on automatic. So we're on autoplane. Let's grab our text tool and let's come down here. And as I hover over a surface, it'll highlight, and that means, okay, you can write stuff there. Enter. And period and a 0. Let's just put a 0 on here. There we go. And then we can start to make it look good. So for example, let me ungroup all this so I can edit this And this, my text, I'm going to make that a light gray. The fill should be none. We don't want it to have like the white gap around it. The pen, let's make it a light gray. And then the buttons want to be black or pretty close to black. So we'll change that from solid white to, let's go like that. And then this unit here, we can make that something like that. Then again, we'll group all that together. And you can go in and drop in all the numbers and such you want. But that is our keypad. Okay, thanks for playing along today. Hopefully you can run some of these exercises. Email me what you come up with if you want. But it's really just to get you used to finding ways to use all these different tools and operations that we've learned about. All right, thanks very much. Bye-bye.